All right, welcome to Mazecast, episode. I don't know what number we're on, but we're getting pretty close to the end. There are only like 6 or 7 rooms left. Tonight we're going to be talking about room 36. We've got Andrew Beelzebubble here with us tonight, and gaming night with us. Yes. The big buzz on the Abyss lately for the last week or so has been trying to figure out the identity of the guide. We haven't really made any progress there, but White Raven has been increasingly free with hints that don't seem to do us any good because we're just not picking up what he's putting down. But hopefully, by the time we've done all these rooms, I think we'll do final retrospective or something where we'll talk about who we think the guide is as well, and maybe by that point we'll have something exciting. Right. Gaming night. Have you looked at room 36 for tonight?
Yes, I did.
All right. Let me pull it up on screen share, and then you can tell us what you think about it. All right. Everyone seeing it on screen share there?
Yep. Okay, I got it.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
What do you got on this room?
Well, I noticed that they got the 2 guys and they're wearing like the mask from like the comedy and tragic film, like the old theater masks type on them.
Yeah.
And they're like, obviously they're just playing some instruments, and one's playing like a comic tune from text, said something like that, or romantic or something.
Well, they describe the melody as moody and romantic. I don't know that they describe one of their playing in particular moody or romantic. Yeah, it's the music that was moody and romantic.
And then just above the one guy that's wearing the tragic mask, he's behind the area that's collapsed a little bit by room 16.
Yeah.
And then the other guy is by room 7, which is back to the path. And then it looks like the guy's looking up like in terror though, with the theater mask on. So I guess in my opinion, I was taking it as like a hint to go back to room 7.
Because he looks terrified of room 16?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and all the fact that there's all that debris, you can't really go anywhere else except for those 2 rooms.
Yeah. Anything else? Did you make anything of the musical discussion in the text?
Not too much. I haven't really, I was taking care of my dog, and I had my niece and nephew this afternoon. They're
Sure, blame the dog. It's the dog's fault that you don't have any sense.
Lassie.
That lousy dog. That dirty dog.
It's all right. It's okay.
Okay. Anything else you want to add, gaming night, before we move?
That's about it. I really haven't really seen anything that really jumps out at me other than what I described.
Okay. We didn't really talk about anyone taking responsibility for this room tonight. I don't know if you were hoping. Did you want to do it, Andrew?
But no, I thought we agreed that Gaming Night was going to present on this one and really take us on a meticulous tour through every solution that's been suggested or confirmed so far.
All right, so you heard. Go ahead and give us the rest of the information on this room. 5-star for us right now. Well, gaming night is balking at his soft duties, so we'll go ahead and we'll say what's been suggested. What's I guess I don't know if I'd say too much is known here. I guess the obvious sort of association to draw is that the comedy is good and tragedy is bad.
Right.
And sort of like Gaming Knight said, you can say because the tragedy guy is looking at 16, or maybe looking at a brick above 16 that's about to fall, which we'll get back to. Or maybe because he's standing closer to 16. For whatever reason, the tragedy guy is associated with 16. The comedy guy is then associated with 7. One difficulty I've got with that is that they both overlap the door to 16, which in most cases we would think of, when you overlap the door that you're associated with that door. In 3-dimensional space, he is closer to 7 than the 16, but in terms of 2-dimensionally, he's clearly closer to 16. In fact, he overlaps it. But the guitarist, his eyes are pointed up at 7, so I think maybe the best way to associate him, or the cleanest way, is to say that the cello guy is looking up at 16 and the comedy guy is looking up at 7. And it seems not a solid enough clue that we would really rely on it if we didn't know it was correct, to say tragedy's bad and comedy's good, so we're going to go the way that comedy points. I don't know that you can really rely on that kind of reasoning.
Because it seems obvious, but on the other hand, it's hard to feel confident that that's not just a fake out, and that you're maybe supposed to buck the obvious and go the other way.
Yeah. A solution that seems that I really like, although there's a small problem with it, is to do with counting the blocks that are on the ground here. What it is, the argument would go that there are actually 16 blocks on the ground, and 7 of them are hit with sunlight, which is sort of suggested in the text when it talks about the music was suited to the scene. And then later he talks about
the vinyl bringing a sense of warmth.
Right, the right sense of warmth to the piece. So there's this connection between the environment, the scene, and the music. And he later says that a sense of warmth is correct in returns to the music, suggesting it's also correct for the environment. Now, there are definitely 7 blocks on the ground that I see that are getting hit by light. If you look at the
3 over on the right and 4, including the one that the guitarist is sitting on. Are you counting that one?
Yes.
Okay, right.
Yeah. And then if you count the other ones that are not in the light, we'll count it total, you get maybe 16, maybe 17. There's a shape back beyond the one of the destroyed doorways that looks like it might be a block behind there, but it's not totally clear. It's just kind of like a diagonal angling down back past the doorway. That if it is a block, then that's a 17th block, I think. Otherwise, I mean, this is another one of those solutions where it makes so much sense and it looks so good that you just want to say, yeah, 16 total blocks, 7 in the sun, that's pretty good. But then you say, well, why does he have something there that looks like it might be a block, it might not be a block? It just muddies up the water in a way that it shouldn't be if this is really the solution.
You might not have realized that other people might see that as a possible block. If you really intended the solution, which I'm not sure about, but I do kind of like it, then he might just have drawn it not realizing that the ambiguity would be there. I'm not sure. I doubt that he vetted all of these solutions with other people.
Oh, I guarantee he did.
Yeah.
Room 35? No. Okay. Other things that have been tried, and John, be honest, I don't remember how successful we eventually decided they were. Probably not successful. There's been a lot of a lot of desire to count the stripes on their clothing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You can get 7 white stripes on the Vial player's shirt, but you have to get 8 dark stripes, and I don't think there's any good reason to just pick the white stripes over the dark stripes and say, yeah, that's a really definitive clue. There's not.
No, and there's not much good reason to really want to count his stripes either.
No.
I mean, if the most you can say is that you found something with 8 on it, so congratulations, but it's not really convincingly intentional.
Well, before we go digging at the bottom of the barrel there, perhaps I could fulfill Alex's special request, which you mentioned, to describe his falling brick solution, which I think is great. Where right over the number 16, that one stone or brick that appears to be loose and kind of out at an angle and is shaded somewhat differently, it all appears rather precarious, and it all looks as though it could fall at any moment. And this has been validated by White Raven, if you take that for whatever you'd like to take that for. This joint solution that was proposed by Alex, and I suppose you could give Gentile credit for extrapolating a little bit, or expanding, or whichever X word you'd like, that it's dangerous to pass under the doorway through 16 because of the possibility that the stone might fall on your head, and that's what the Vial player is looking up at in terror.
Yeah, that was a weird combination of credit, wasn't it? Because Alex is like, hey, there's a stone, it looks like it's about to fall over 16. Nothing. And then Gentile's like, well, yeah, you don't want to walk under that because you might get hit by it. Bam! Solution.
Well, I'm not sure that I would, I feel like Alex deserves the whole credit for that, but that's okay.
Well, yeah, I don't care much about credit. It's a funny thing to divide up. But there's stuff like that, all over, where it seems like the second half of the sentence is already implied, but I need to spell it out exactly. I'm not too convinced that block really looks like it's going to fall in particular, but certainly the space over 16 is far more ruinous than over 7. 7 looks to be totally together and fine. 16 is starting to crumble. I think even without reference to that particular block looking like it's going to fall, I think you can just set up an association with, you've got all these other archways that are falling. And
yeah, it was, I think it was, well, maybe multiple people have proposed this, but I noticed a comment from Wanderer back in the day when I was looking up prior to the episode where, he pointed out, and this is something I feel like Gaming Night was actually along the same lines. You were touching on the same idea briefly, where 7 is the only completely intact wall, and all of the other walls are in some state of ruin, and that seems like a pretty solid reason to want to take that. Yeah, at least as the comic tragedy comedies thing.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, I think I like it better than comedy and tragedy, but it's certainly at least as good, I think, to say that not ruined is better than ruined.
Yeah, seems good. Although, of course, it bears mentioning, and none of us have pointed this out yet, that this really is one of the least consequential choices in the entire book, because you're still within this little cluster at the center of the loop, and even if you go to 16, you can go to 7, so it's not exactly a high-stakes run. You're just trying to get back off of the loop.
Yeah, I mean, most of the rooms in the path are not particularly dangerous anyway. I mean, until you get back to 10 and 41, there's making a wrong decision doesn't really matter. In 10, it only matters if you go to 14, because 14 has exits to the trap, and 41 has an exit to the trap. But in the vast majority of the rooms, you can't do any harm to yourself.
I guess the painter is the only one I can think of, right? Doesn't the painter have a trap?
The painter?
I'm sorry, the guy painting with the big statue, room 19. The portico, the shaded portico.
Right, the outdoor rooms. 20, 31, 44. Those, 44 doesn't, but they have exits to the trap as well. I was putting them in their own category because they don't connect to the back and forth like most of the path does. But you're right. or not path, loop. I think I said path like 10 times when I meant loop.
What do you mean by they don't connect to the back and forth?
Well, I'm kind of, because you can go from those 4 rooms to the rest of the loop, but you can't go back. So they're kind of in their own little section there. They're not like the vast majority of the loop where you can move freely to and from any room you want. Those are only connected by a one-way door into 18.
Yeah, once you're there, you can't get back in there. Interesting. I never noticed that.
But anyway, even beyond that, this is even lower stakes than most of the loop, because there's really not even any potential that you're going to go the wrong way and get lost here. As you say, it's just a 3-room loop here. Eventually, you're going to go to room 7 and then through 7 to room 33. That's all there is to it. There's no way you're going to get turned around or lost. So yeah, this really is a very inconsequential. Because it's connected to 7 and 16, which both seem to contain clues to who the guide is, I think 36 seems like it's telling us something about the guide, although this is not as explicit as, 7 and 16 both are very explicitly telling you something about the guide's former life. They had a wild childhood. That place reminds him of his old neighbors and all that stuff. This one doesn't say anything like that. It's more the fact that he busts out this somewhat specialized vocabulary to describe the music in here, so that surprises us, or at least it surprised me, and I always sort of took it as an indication that the guy has some kind of special relationship or knowledge with regard to music. I'm not as
established that flange and brio is what all the kids are saying these days. No, I agree with you. Yeah, that is sort of that and perhaps his reluctant admission of being affected by the music. Those are the only little pointers that we get about him.
Yeah. I'm not totally sure whether. Again, I think maybe its proximity to 7 and 16 suggests there's something here that's not really here. But I know even like years ago, before the Abyss and all that stuff, when I really got heavy into this, I just kind of always took the room that way. This is really telling us something about the guide that he's this into the music here. Uh-oh. Anything else you have to say about the room before we go to the text?
You know what I'm gonna say? Oh
no, please go ahead.
Well, like I said, it looks like the guy is like the one that's at the tragic. It's kind of like he's playing like on a bass, upright bass, kind of sort of like they use for like the dramatic and pretty intense moments. Whereas the other guy is kind of like strumming a Mary Lee tune, and it's got like it's not as dark. The other guy, the guy behind the guy that's playing the more dramatic stuff. He's like, that room's like very dark and dreary looking. Where the other one's got the grass and everything. It's more vibrant.
Well, and that's a good point too. Independent of counting blocks, we talked about the right sense of warmth and all that. I mean, 7, the doorway to 7 is bathed in light. There's just like a path of light that comes from the right side of the room into the left side of the room, that there's 7 with sunlight and warm. So even if you don't like the counting block stuff, I think that's a reasonable interpretation of the room as well.
I was going to say something else that I noticed when I was looking at this room right before the episode, which I don't like, but I'm just going to throw it out there. You can get a 7 you can get the shape of 7 in the music stand that's sitting in front of the viol player, and that sucks, but I thought I would say it because it's no worse than some of the hidden 7s that have been confirmed in room 16, which I'm still bitter about. I'm still bitter about all but one of those, so figured I might as well throw it out there and see if my Raven likes it.
Do you get the 7 from the top of the stand and then one of the
diagonal inward? Yeah,
oh,
directly in front of the ball. Yeah. I'm sure it's not intentional, but then I'm also sure that some of the 7s and 16 are not intentional. So there you go.
yeah, I look at the V's and stuff in there, and I want to try to do some kind of Roman numerals or something with it. But
Right. I saw you had an interesting comment where you pointed out the romantic melody as maybe an insider for Roman numerals here, which I'm always game for. But I don't know about in this film. I don't know if it's.
yeah, I don't see anything coming out of it.
Anything's possible with Christopher Manson on this situation.
No.
Okay, going to the text.
Yes.
All right.
Shall I read? You want to stop me? You're the one
Yeah.
who's got the call. All right, I'll read. An old and ruinous part of the house. Turning a corner, the music we had been hearing became louder, and at last we saw the musicians themselves.
Now, that's interesting. The music we had been hearing became louder. It's in room 7 that the music is referenced. No other room that connects to here references the fact that they're hearing music. And in 7, it points out that they hear music. Why does it do that? This is not the right way to go from 7. I mean, clearly, all throughout this book, when it describes where the group goes in the text, and it tells you should go to that door. If it says that they opened a door, that means you don't go through a door that's already open. You know what I mean? But here, the text from 70 to 36 clearly suggests continuity in the narrative. They heard music, they could hear the music that they had been hearing, but it's the wrong way. Why does it do that? I don't know.
The only other thing I can think of, and I guess that it's not quite the same because there isn't as strong of a pointer in the starting room, but what is it? The room with the idol. I'm not as good with room numbers. 41, of course, the slide 38 then leads into what I think is a continuity nod from 41.
You're right.
But it's not quite the same because, well, a special piece of furniture I thought might appeal to my guests. If you think that's the slide, then it's sort of similar.
I think you're right. I think that's a good point. It is definitely a continuous narrative there from 38 to 41. It's not as strong, but all that's, it's certainly stronger on the 38 end. That 38 really seems to be, a little confusion as we made our entrance. Entrance certainly seems to be suggest coming down the slide. So I agree with you. That's another place where there seems to be some continuity in the narrative, but it takes a lot of plays. Yeah. And it's also got that turning a corner bit, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, except I think if you look through the doorway to 16, it looks like there's a corner right behind there that you have to turn to come into the room, right?
Sure.
You?
Yeah, but what would the point be? That you should then go to 7? That's weird. That's weird because if you take that as an indicator that you came here from 16, then you've got the other textual indicator that you came here from 7.
But you wouldn't know that until you get to 7.
Yeah.
And of course, by the time you've been in all 3 of these rooms, you know that there's no point in going back again because they just go in a search.
Yeah.
But it does seem like that to me. Like whichever room you came out, this seems to try to confirm that you just came from that room. At least between 7 and 16, not from the other. If it came from one of the other entrances, and I don't even know off the top of my head. I think 45 comes here. Maybe room 4 comes here.
Let me look up.
Whatever. It doesn't really matter, I don't think. If you come here from one of the other entrances, then it's actually 26 and 45 that come here. Okay. That old and ruinous part. I don't know. I don't know that really means anything because that's really just descriptive of the area. It doesn't add anything to it. But I do think it's interesting, just the idea of the house having older and newer parts. We see that down in the foundation when you get into the trap, that it's like the more primitive parts of it. And that seems to mean something, like you're getting to like you're getting deep into the bowels of this place. I don't know why this place is one of the older sections unless it's just becoming disused.
Yeah, the outdoor areas just sort of generally all across the board seem to appear pretty old to me. We've got the moss covered, like the yin yang room, the light and darkness room, whatever it was, the one with the bird. That seems very old in disrepair.
It does look like the plants are starting to overgrow a little bit out there.
Yeah. Well, on the other hand, they had just so kept in reasonable shape.
And that's another interesting point, which we probably should have mentioned before in the text, but this looks like an outdoor room. If you had to look at pictures and pick out the outdoor rooms, 36 would be among them. No, only other outdoor rooms are all connected to each other, and that's 19, 21, 31, 44. That's the circuit of rooms we just talked about earlier. That's technically part of the loop, but it's sort of different from all the other rooms in the loop because it only connects via a one-way door to the rest of the loop, and it has some trap exits in it. So for that reason, I like to pretend that this is not outdoors just to maintain that sense of order. I treat this as a room that was indoors but has just fallen into ruin, and that's why it's overgrown with grass and there's no roof on it anymore. That's not really plausible. I mean, if there had been a roof over this place, I think there would have to be a lot more blocks on the ground now than what we see.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this probably is an outdoor room. Or whatever that means, whatever that's worth.
Well, maybe it was like an indoor courtyard.
Yeah. It certainly was enclosed, it was enclosed. It had an open roof, but there are a lot of rooms that have open roofs. That doesn't necessarily make it outdoors. So
Right.
maybe we probably would have considered it indoors.
Yeah.
Maybe it hadn't fallen apart.
Yeah. Anyway, shall I go on?
Yeah.
Okay. They were so involved, they failed to hear us. Music was suited to the scene, a moody, romantic melody. We stopped to listen, and I admit that I, too, was affected by the sound as well as by the spectacle of the masked players.
There's some interesting... dichotomy between, dichotomy is not really the right word, but he seems to be separating hearing and seeing several times here. I mean, first it just points out that they were hearing the music first, and then finally they saw the musicians. They point out that the musicians were so involved in their music they failed to hear them. I guess that doesn't have anything to do with sight. It's just focusing on hearing again. But then it says again that he was affected by the sound as well as the spectacle. Suggestive to me that we should be I don't know what it's suggestive of, but it's something that there are two parts in here that we need to consider: the music as well as the appearance, which could just be a reinforcement of what we talked about before, about the idea that the scenery is well suited to the music. Just the idea that there are two parts to this. There's what you see and what you hear. But it does seem to very specifically reinforce those two aspects in that paragraph. No, am I crazy with that?
I'm sorry?
I said, or no? Am I crazy with that?
Well, I don't know. The only thought I had was that maybe he wrote they failed to hear us and didn't mention them seeing us as a subtle clue that actually the masks are completely covered over and they can't see anything.
Hmm.
Because we can't tell that those are actually eye holes. Maybe they're actually painted on. Or who knows what you get from that.
Sound and spectacle. I wonder if that's in reference to like the instruments and the masks. Sound and spectacle. Spectacles. It doesn't seem like it's really much of a spectacle that they're putting on there, you know? I guess the only reason you think of it as being at all theatrical is because they're masks.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've got no answers there.
You think they were, since this connects to 26, you think they were kicked off the stage? Maybe they were performing there.
But there could be sort of sense of continuity there from 26 to here.
Anyway. All right, I'll go on.
Hmm.
One of the visitors noticed me listening. Beautiful music, don't you think? It's not bad, I said stiffly. The viol brings the right sense of warmth to the piece, but the guitarist is overplaying his part. Still, he adds a certain plangent brio to an otherwise introspective composition.
Plangent brio.
Plangent brio.
Did anyone not have to look that up? Like what that means?
No idea.
Well, but I mean, whether you actually looked it up or not, I mean, did anyone know what that meant without looking it up? I don't even remember what it means, and I probably looked it up 10 times. That's the phrase that really stands out as making this guy seem like he's like a real music critic, just because he's using a phrase that I don't know what the hell he's talking about. It makes him seem like an authority.
Plangent, resounding loudly, as if a bell. And
brio is kind of like enthusiasm or right? What's that?
that's sort of like the cheese, right? Brio cheese? Yeah, resounding vigor.
When it says he said it stiffly, it's not bad. I said, and you take it too. It was him trying to conceal the effect the music is actually having on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I get from that. He doesn't want to let on. So then we've got. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if he's a figure from Greek mythology, that would resonate with ideas of people like Orpheus, who had, the power to coax reactions out of otherwise savage creatures with music.
Or Apollo, who was the god of music.
Yeah, here we go.
Apollo was the god of like 15 different things.
You can get all of the letters for Apollo in plangent brio.
Oh, wow. And then with the leftover letters,
It's spelled out. You can spell Brogent. Regent. Ring bent. Apollo bent ring. There we go.
Well, I remember 10 years ago, however long ago, back in the Justin Bailey days, that made me think that maybe Apollo was the guy because of all the sun stuff, and then this with the music, and then I was reading about Apollo, and it said he was the god of music. I'm like, that's what it is. I'm not at all confident. I mean, that's not my thought now, but it is potentially a connection. The guitarist is overplaying his part. Now, what I suggested about that, who knows, is the guitarist really, his guitar seems to be pointing right into door 16.
Yeah.
We want to associate one with 16 and one with 7, but really, they both seem to be whatever. At least the guy's guitar is pointing right into 16. And then I took the idea of guitar overplaying, the idea that 16, because 16 is greater than 7, that's you're overdoing it, I guess, if you go to 16 instead of 7. That's that's the kind of solution that kind of sounds good in my head when I'm just looking at the words, but then when I try to actually verbalize why I think that's a riddle solution, it just sounds super stupid.
I read it and I didn't think it was awful. I missed the part about 16 being greater than 7. I don't think you need that part. That's a little, I think just, we don't have to get too concerned about the over prefix, but just the sentence with the guitarist is kind of messing things up a little. And the guitarist is sort of, insofar as there's a wrong one and a right one, the viol player is doing it right and the guitarist is doing it wrong. That seems okay.
Well, the weird thing is, I mean, so okay, the viol's right, guitar's wrong, guitar points to 16, but the viol doesn't really seem to point to 7. Unless we say V for viol, and the V kind of looks like a 7 turned on its side.
No, I don't think we do that. Something we could do, but I don't think we do.
But well, it could be too. Forget about 16 being higher than 7. When he takes his attitude about the two players and he's like, well, this one's right, this one's a little off, but it's not too bad. You could kind of take that about the rooms too, where you might be saying, yeah, 7's the correct door, 16 is wrong, but it doesn't really matter. It's going to bring you around.
16 does add a certain tangent brio with that big strapping Hagrid guy.
I think it's and it's got the jester in there, right?
Oh, it's dripping with tangent brio.
I think so. I think the statements that he's making about the players do fit more. I mean, right? You have to take plangent brio with a grain of salt, because who even knows what that. But it does kind of apply to the two rooms there, you know.
Yeah. Right? It suffers from that. That's a cool idea. It just suffers from the fact that, as you say, it would be nice if you could really get more of a connection between 7 and the viol to really hit that one home.
Yeah. Although overplaying, I want to focus on over again. Forget about the numbers. Just consider the fact that you've got an extra step in there if you go to 16, right? So you're adding another step to your path by going to 16 first and then going to 7. So in that sense, you're overdoing it, but, you know, it's okay. That's not terrible.
No, it's not. I like it.
I think, great. I think if there were a way to say that the viol is associated with 7, that would be good. Which, you know, we could do it disingenuously. Look, the way the viol, the 7, and then you see that line running across the back wall. That's
God. Oh my gosh, 7.
It's a 7. That's your viol 7.
Wow.
Kaboom.
All right, you want me to finish up the text?
Yeah, go ahead.
Unwilling to interrupt the concert, we slipped past the musicians into the door to... And I know you've thought a lot about this. I don't know if I set much store by this, but I know you've thought a lot about it.
Oh, it's funny because to me it was very clearly saying one thing, and to someone else it was very clearly saying the other.
Do you remember who that someone else was?
I think it was anchor person Smith Lewis, who's never actually appeared on one of these, but was interested in Maze for a little bit and posted some things on the Abyss a long time ago. To me, when it says we slipped past the musicians, that bit of it suggests to me the fact that they're slipping past them, that they must be cutting in between them and going to 16. Because if you're going through 7, you don't have to slip past them. You can cut a wide arc around them and walk through 7. You know, there's no slipping involved. On the other, willing to interrupt the concert really only makes sense if you're saying that you didn't do that. I mean, if one of these two doors requires them to interrupt the concert, it's going to be 16, right? It's going to be squeezing in between those two music stands. So it seems like if you focus on the slipping past those issues, that's just
Oh, you love your clothes and all your energies. Oh, your. Sorry, my phone.
I really added a certain plangent brioche to the episode.
Anyway, unwilling to interrupt is suggestive of Stafford, I think. I think unwilling to interrupt wins out. I think the most rational interpretation of that line is that they didn't want to squeeze between the two of them, between those mutants, and stop them from playing.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. I just don't have strong feelings about that line in either case. I'm not sure that he chose it that carefully as a clue, but
Oh, come on, man. That's
no, I don't know. It just seems
slipped past. I think that's the same as like in room 42 when he mentions that they opened a door, so that tells you don't go through the door that's already open. Same deal on 31. I think it's the same sort of deal. I disagree.
Yeah, I guess I just don't have strong feelings about that one.
Okay. I can't think of anything more to say about. Anybody else?
Any closing thoughts from gaming night?
Not really. This room is pretty much. There's not much to this room. From what it looks like right now, it's like set for a lot of misdirection with the. Because if you come in through room 16, obviously they want you to go to 7. If you're coming from room 7, it's telling you they went past the room 16.
Yeah.
That's true. Maybe this is just kind of designed so that whichever way you come through, it tells you to go the other way. But that seems kind of redundant anyway, doesn't it? I mean, that's pretty obviously what you're going to do. That's weird. Hearing the music ties this room weird. Well, I guess that's all we've got for tonight on room 36. We'll see you next time. We're going to know who that goddamn guide is. I'll tell you that by the end of this.
Yep.
We're going to know who that son of a bitch is. We're going to
know who that guide is by the end of the sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find out whether even if it ends up being a missing link or something.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time with
I'll see you guys.
drop on it.